This course of our learning should be a protection. We'll start today on page 100. That's Kuf Amud Aleph. Okay, we had a machlokes in the Brisa between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. The machlokes was about Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov, if you're allowed to eat a meal very close to Shabbos after 9 hours into the day. Let's say that's the pshat. I'm hesitant because it could be 9.5. Let's go back there. Well, let's say that it's talking about 9 hours into the day. You're not allowed to start a meal after that. According to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yossi, you can. However, Rabbi Yossi would agree on Erev Pesach that you're not allowed to. And that's the pshat in our Mishnah. That's what we said before. Erev Pesachim, Samach L'Mincha, that's according to Rabbi Yossi, that holds on Shabbos you are allowed to. On Erev Pesach he holds you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to start a meal. Now, that was the pshat according to Rav Huna. And the pshat according to Rav Papa was the difference between 9 hours or 9.5 hours. That according to Rabbi Yehuda, it says that you're never allowed to start a meal. So why over here does it say Erev Pesach? You're not allowed to start out because over here it's 9 hours. Usually you're not allowed to start 9.5 hours. Anyway, we said that that's not accurate because we have a brisa that says both of them is 9 hours. This is where we're left with right now is that we're going to follow Rav Huna's pshat. Ela machvarta k'der Rav Huna. That's what we'll start with. It's 4 lines from the top. Ela machvarta means chiva. It's correct. It's white. It's clear. It's clear according to Rav Huna. The pshat is better. And what we're going to say is that our Mishnah is really the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. That only Erev Pesach do we have any restriction on starting a meal before dark. But Erev Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov, no problem. Go ahead and do it. The Gemara says, Rav Huna minicha. And according to Rav Huna, you think you've fixed the problem, the question that you had in our Mishnah. That why is it only Erev Pesach? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yirmiyah says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. And some say Rabbi Vo said in the name of Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. This points out that you shouldn't say Rabbi Yechanan in the name of Rabbi Vo because Rabbi Vo was a student of Rabbi Yechanan. So you have to have that v'itema there. It's a different tradition. What do they say? Halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda berev Pesach, halacha k'Rabbi Yossi berev Shabbos. Now, they're paskening like Rabbi Yehuda. They're paskening like Rabbi Yehuda on Erev Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda holds you're not allowed to eat a meal 9 hours into the day. After 9 hours into the day, you can't have a meal. It's too close to Shabbos, right? Rabbi Yossi, so on Erev Pesach, you're not allowed to. They pasken like Rabbi Yossi on Erev Shabbos that you are allowed to eat a meal up until Shabbos. Now, the Gemara clarifies, the Gemara addresses what was just said. It says, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda berev Pesach. If you tell me the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda on Erev Pesach, what are you telling me? You're telling me that you're going to follow one opinion and not the other opinion. What's the other opinion? Michlal, the Palag Rabbi Yossi B'Tarvayo. Obviously, Rabbi Yossi argues. Rav Huna was trying to say that our Mishnah, you're not allowed to eat. Why does it have to say that? Say every year of Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov. We said no. We're following Rabbi Yossi that holds only Erev Pesach. He agrees to Rabbi Yehuda, but now we see that he doesn't agree to Rabbi Yehuda. We see it's a machlekes. How do you see it's a machlekes? Because he paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. Obviously, Rabbi Yossi argues, and Rabbi Yossi would hold that you are allowed to, even on Erev Pesach. The Gemara answers by introducing another concept here. And what happens when we introduce the next concept is we're going to explain that there is a machlekes that goes on Erev Pesach as well. That's what happens is like this. Take a look. Loi. It's not the pshat. Halacha mechlal de pligi b'hafsaka. It's another concept. Not if you're allowed to start. When it comes to starting a meal on Erev Shabbos, we're going to keep it the same. An Erev Shabbos, Rabbi Yossi holds you're allowed to start. An Erev Pesach, Rabbi Yossi holds you're not allowed to start. Our Mishnah is going to work. So why do you say that there's we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda and Erev Pesach? That sounds like that Rabbi Yossi really argues that you are allowed to. No. You're mixing up with another concept. There's another concept. That is that if someone started a meal, does he need to stop when it becomes shkia? Now, Rabbi Yehuda holds that you have to stop, and Rabbi Yossi holds you don't have to stop. Not going to put it. Why didn't we learn this last week? Rabbi Yossi holds that you can just keep eating. You start a meal. He holds you're allowed to start a meal on Erev Shabbos. Not Erev Pesach, but he holds you're allowed to start a meal on Erev Shabbos. And you just keep eating. Just keep going. When are you going to make Kiddush? Don't worry about that. You'll make Kiddush after the meal. You'll make Kiddush. You need Kiddush b'makam suda. Taisus points out that according to Rabbi Yossi, Kiddush makam suda could be after the meal is also considered makam suda. You just ate. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. You have to stop. You have to bench. You have to start over. Shabbos, you need everything to start from scratch. You have to start. Okay. So now we understand Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yechina, Rabbi Yirmiyah named Rabbi Yechina and Rabbi Avan named Rabbi Yossi Bechanina. What are they saying? That there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda on Erev Shabbos and on Erev Pesach. On Erev Shabbos, Rabbi Yossi holds you just keep eating. And on Erev Shabbos, he paskins like Rabbi Yossi. On Erev Pesach, Rabbi Yossi holds he can also keep eating. It's going to be a very interesting Seder. It's going to be a totally messed up Seder. Totally out of order. I'll tell you how it's going to work. Rabbi Yossi is going to hold that you just keep eating. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you have to stop right there. We paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to stop. Yeah. Let's take a look. We'll take a look at the Brisa. I'll tell you how the Seder is going to work. But let's learn the Brisa first. Okay. The Tanya or Kiddatanya, it's two versions of Taisvis. Okay, either one. Mafsikin, it has to do with, are we talking about Erev Pesach or are we talking about just Erev Shabbos? Mafsikin l'Shabbases, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Amrin Mafsikin. You stop for Shabbos when Shabbos comes in. That's Rabbi Yehuda's view. Rabbi Yehuda's pretty tough about eating, basically. Says, don't eat a meal before Shabbos. And if you did, even if you started Beheter, even if you started before 9 hours, you have to stop. And Rabbi Yossi says, you can start whenever you want, and you can keep going. There's a story. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi, they're having their meal in Akko. With Kiddush Leim Hayom, it becomes Shabbos. Amalei Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yossi, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Retzaincha Nafsek Benichos Liv Rabbi Yehuda Chavirenu. Would you like to stop to suspect to the words of Rabbi Yehuda, our friend? Now, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? That you have to stop the meal when it becomes Shkia. Yeah, last time I learned this, I didn't get a chance not to look it up, but the Mefarshim say that what I was talking about is Rabbi Yehuda obviously needs a mezumin. Would you like to stop eating and answer to the mezumin that Rabbi Yehuda wants to make? He wants to make a mezumin. Amar Lai, they said to him, B'chol yom v'yom atem mechav dvar l'fnei Rabbi Yehuda. He says, I thought you're my friend. Every day you always appreciate my words over Rabbi Yehuda. You want to conquer, overtake the queen while I'm in the house? That's Achashverosh tells the Haman. Yeah. I think people think that this is alluding to what to do on Purim when it falls out on Friday. So you want to stop? You want to stop the meal right now? Or are you going to follow Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? Amalei, So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Im kain lei nafsik." Okay, fine, we won't stop. Shami Yira Talmidim Yikva Alachol Adeirus. It's interesting. Rabbi Yehuda is silent in this whole conversation. He doesn't say anything. Maybe, yeah. If the brackets are correct, where it says Rabbi Yehuda, I have brackets. Rabbi Yehuda's there. The brackets are correct, and the pshat is correct that Rabbi Yehuda wants a mezumin. Then Rabbi Yehuda is quiet the whole time. It's interesting. But if the brackets aren't correct, and it's Meiser B'Shem Ben Gamliel Rabbi Yaisi, and there's not a mezumin. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was just suggesting that they stop to be chayshish for another shita. And then Rabbi Yaisi is saying, why do we have to do that? You never follow his opinion when against mine. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel now says, okay, you're right. You're right. Once I brought it up, we have to be careful. Maybe the students will see what we just did, and they'll say that that's how we paskin. That was one time in yeshiva, and this is what they did. You have to be careful. People are going to get the halacha from that. They established the halacha then, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yaisi, which means that you don't have to stop. Okay, what would you do by the seder if you don't have to stop? So Taisha here, and the rest. Taisha definitely. I don't remember if I saw it in the Rashbam also. Notice this page is divided in half. In the Rashi commentary, has Rashi on the top and the Rashbam on the bottom. Taisva over here in Rabbi Yossi Yomer, he says what you would do is you make the 4 cups of wine according to Rabbi Yossi. What you would do is your first cup of wine would be after the meal. You already ate the matzah. You already ate the matzah because you washed before. You're middle of a meal. You're going to bench after the meal. So you have, every kais needs to have a bracha. So your first kais, the kais rishon, instead of being kiddush, is going to be the kais of birchas hamazon. Then you have to make kiddush because kiddush makam suda. So then you drink another cup of wine for kiddush. So that's your second cup. Then you have to say the manishtana. So in the Haggadah, the Magid. So your third cup of wine is going to be the bracha asher galanu v'galas savisena at the end of Magid. And then your fourth cup of wine will be hallow. You say after hallow. Quite an interesting seder. Remember, there was this thing when the Rebbe, someone at the Rebbe's house said the bracha al natilas yadayim by Orkat. So the Rebbe told him, I don't remember the details, but the Rebbe told him what to do. Yeah, the Rebbe told him that, look, Shittas Rambam or whatever, that you could say a bracha when you wash for food, for wet foods. So okay, you follow that shita. And he just ate the. Anyway, afterwards at the Fabrengen, the Rebbe spoke about it. He said that Ta'isi, I made a mistake by the Seder. And he said this at the Fabrengen. And he said that's really a bracha that's not required by halacha is very serious. What he should have done was he should have ate the bread, not the bread, the matzah. Should have ate the matzah because he said al natilas yadayim. And then the Rebbe gave the seder of how he would work out the. Very interesting. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. But 1 second, before we go further, I just have to point out one thing here. What comes out? What's the end of this? So Taisvus at the end, in Taisvus Ein Mafsikin, Taisvus says, he quotes the Bahag. The Bahag is the Baal Halachas Kedelos. I don't know if we know who that is. We think it's written a Trani Gain or something. Yeah. The Bahag is the one that the Rambam argues on in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. The whole Sefer Mitzvahs is, like, at least the introduction is based on don't follow the Bahag's accounting of the mitzvahs, because he counts the Rabbanans as part of the 613, and it's other things also. So here, Taisus quotes the Bahag. He says, "The Erev Shabbos ein lahaschalecho min mincha l'mayla." Erev Shabbos, don't start to eat after mincha l'mayla. The feel Rabbi Yossi leikamer el d'layapsik. Avalas Rabbi Yossi, even Rabbi Yossi never said that you're allowed to eat then. He just said that you don't have, if you started eating, you don't have to stop. What's happening here is that he's learning a totally different shot in this Gemara. We were learning that there's one machlokes if you're allowed to eat. Rabbi Yossi holds yes. There's another machlokes if you have to stop. Turns out, really, Rabbi Yossi holds also that you're not allowed to. Rabbi Yossi coming to unless he means we don't paskin like Rabbi Yossi only about stopping, that you don't have to stop if you started, but to start you're not allowed to. What would be the pshat in the Mishnah? Why doesn't it say Arvi Shabbases? So we said it's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. It also says, according to this, that you're not allowed to. Yeah, the problem with that is that when the Mishnah says, what we gain from that is a halacha that on Erev Shabbos you are allowed to. It's because it's meduyak. No, but the Mishnayos don't work like that. The fact that it says Ari Pesachim Samach L'Mincha L'Yeichel, that tells me that Erev Shabbos you are allowed to. Yeah. Yeah. So what comes out from this is like a different. There's a different shot than what I was expecting. I was expecting this Gemara would tell me that I'm allowed, because we're going to paskin like Rabbi Yossi on Erev Shabbos, I'm allowed to eat. Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, I should paskin like Rabbi Yossi anyway. Halacha Rabbi Yossi against Rabbi Yehuda that we have was a Gemara Erev, and Nimulka Yimai, the Rabbi Yossi always gets the halacha. And then I would think that you don't have to stop. So Tosfos says, okay, granted, you don't have to stop once you started, but to start, you're not allowed to. That's what he's adding in over here. Which that we didn't have to learn. That we didn't have to say like that. We could have learned it different. Okay, now, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Rav Yehuda is a student of Shmuel. He says, Ein halacha like Rav Yehuda like Rav Yossi. The halacha is not like Rav Yehuda or like Rav Yossi. This is this famous quote. Everyone was using this before Purim. Are you going to be Piris Mappa? Piris Mappa means I spread a cloth over the challah, Piris Mappa, and then I say Kiddush. That means I'm in the middle of my meal. I cover all the mezainis, the bread, whatever, the challah that's there. Piris Mappa, and then I say Kiddush, and then I don't have to wash again. That's what it sounds like. You don't have to wash again. Just make Kiddush in the middle of the meal. So, the Rashbam here says, who is Shmuel paskening like? He's not going like Rabbi Yehuda. He's not going like Rabbi Yossi. But, you see, which is he being stricter? Is he passing like Rabbi Yossi but being stricter? Or is he passing like Rabbi Yehuda and being more lenient? Why is he making Kiddush right then? According to Rabbi Yossi, you don't have to do that. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to bench. You have to do more than this. But Rashbam says it's obviously that he's passing like Rabbi Yossi and being more strict. Really, according to Rabbi Yossi, you could wait till after the meal and make Kiddush. He's saying that you make Kiddush, no, you make Kiddush in the middle of the meal. That's it. Why do you have to cover the bread to make Kiddush? We'll see in a moment. Tosfos says that there's actually a third opinion. You don't have to say that he's going like Rabbi Yossi and he's just being stricter. There's actually the opinion of the Chachamim. The Gemara says right away, Aini, is this really so? Rav Tachlifa bar of Dimi, Amar Shmuel. Here's our problem. Rav Tachlifa bar of Dimi says in the name of Shmuel, Kshem shemafsikim lekiddush, the same way you stop for Kiddush, kach mafsikim l'Havdalah, you also stop to make Havdalah. Now, what does that mean? In the middle of Shalosh Shudus, and it's time for Ma'ariv. So, but the mimer is still going on and whatever. The rabbi's still talking. So you're still allowed to eat. They said, no, you have to stop everything. Stop the meal right then. No more eating now. It's already shkia. Well, we washed it. Continue to say. But it says mafsikin lavdali, you have to stop. My mafsikin lav lakir shulchan. It must mean that you take away the table. Take away the table means that you bench. The way it would work in those days is that they would have reclining, they would have chairs, like the Roman couches. They would get like a TV dinner table, like those little tables. They would bring a tray, they would put it on the stand. That was your meal. Akira Shulchan meant you took away the tray. Now, took away the tray meant that the meal is over. The waiter took away your plate, the meal's over. If you're going to eat after that, then you would have to either bench or make a new bracha, whatever the halacha would be. But Akira Shulchan, you have to you take away the table. It means no more eating. No more eating means benching. Okay. So the Gemara says, actually, that's not the pshat. Loi lamapa. Mafsikin just means that you cover it over. You just cover it over. Mapa is the tablecloth. You put a little napkin over the challah, and you make Havdalah, and you also make Kiddush. The same way you have to stop to make Kiddush, you also have to stop to make Havdalah. You really have to stop to make Havdalah? Why don't we paskin like this? We don't stop to make Havdalah. Okay, that's an interesting question. Why would we do this for Kiddush and not for Havdalah? I think maybe that's the pshat. Yeah, I think that's going to say that we're going to have something like that. Yeah, that you would rather extend the Shabbos, but you also want to start the Shabbos at least earlier. Yeah, that could be. Okay, Rabba Bar Rav Huna Ikla Lebei Reish Galusa. Rabba Bar Rav Huna is in the house of the Reish Galusa. I see Taka Kameh, they bring the table in front of him. Paras Mapa the Kiddush. He puts over the tablecloth over it and he makes Kiddush. Now, the Rashbam here says, after they came home from Shul, they brought the table to him before they made Kiddush. Now, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to make Kiddush. No, what happened was he made Kiddush, but he was expecting, I guess the expectation was, why is this like an interesting story? Expectation is that you make Kiddush and then afterwards you bring the food. But they brought the food and he didn't make Kiddush yet. He makes Kiddush, he covers the food and he makes Kiddush. Now, to us, this is not surprising at all because we don't bring table. Can you imagine if you had to get the whole family together to carry a dining room table in from the kitchen? They would put all the food on it and then you would carry it in and put it down around and the chairs around it. So we always have the table there. We have the table there, so we have the challahs on the table and we cover it over. And there's a reason why we do that. We have it there already from before, covered over. He was yeah, probably. Moshe is saying that people don't bring the food to the table. They just have the challah on the table, not the food. Yeah. In the yeshivas, the waiters, the bachram that are the waiters, they serve the food, they put it all out. By the time everyone's waiting for Kiddush, by the time Mesha's Chayil's over, all the everyone's plate is like heaped up. Like, and then they make Kiddush, and then, so it doesn't look right. Something's not correct. Okay, so basically what's happening to Rabbi Baravun is exactly what happens to us every week. We cover the challah and we make Kiddush. It's not a big deal. In other words, the Rashbam is saying that he wasn't in the middle of a meal, which is what we were expecting to follow from what was happening before in the Gemara. Okay. The Rashbam brings some rayas for this. However, then he says that Yesh Mefarshim, I don't know if you see this long Rashbam, Yesh Mefarshim, that he was actually eating the meal before on Erev Shabbos, and it was Paras Mapel Makadesh. In the middle of the meal, they covered the food and they made Kiddush in the middle of the meal. He says, the Rashbam says, V'lein Hirli, this doesn't seem correct. Doesn't fit. Okay. Now, Taisus also says, Paschalas Sidairi the Pirish Rashbam. We're talking about that at the beginning of the meal. Now, where did I see he quotes a Sheiltes? Yeah, the Rashbam quotes a Sheiltes the Rabachai Gain. Familiar with the Sheiltes? Sheiltes was written by one of the Gainim, Rabachai Gain. And in there, Achai Gain. He was earlier. Rabbi was at the end. The Sheiltes is earlier, I think. And he writes in Parshas Yisroi that don't bring the food to the table before Kiddush, because you want the food to be there l'kavod Shabbos, and once you bring it, you don't take it away. Rather, Perisal of Mappa, if you did bring it, you don't take it away, rather Peris Mappa Makadosh. You want the food to come l'kavod Shabbos. Yeah. So Taisus over here says, let's read another line of the Gemara. Gemara says, Tanya Nami Hachi was also taught in a brayso, so let's skip the word V'shavin. She'ein mevi'en es a shulchan elam ken Kiddush. You only bring the table after Kiddush. Bimhevi, and if you brought it before, Peres Mappa Makadosh, you cover it over. So Taisus over here says, you see Shein, Taisus Shein, in the middle of Taisus, it says, V'achshav shulchan shalom Hashem gedolim yeser midai. Now that our tables are very big, you can't bring them after Kiddush, so you just cover it over. And he explained what it says in the Sheiltes, that you want to bring the table in honor of Shabbos. So once you make Kiddush, then you bring the food. Otherwise, you're eating leftovers. It's not in honor of Shabbos. It was the Friday afternoon meal, like this Shabbos. This Shabbos. Everyone ate Purim leftovers. Wasn't Shabbos food. Would have been Friday afternoon food on a regular week. So, but however, then he says that some say that it's Zeichel Aman. I'm sorry? Some say that it's Zeichel Aman. What's the Zeichel Aman? Taisus says that the man had a layer of dew underneath and a layer of dew over. So that's why you put the chalas on the table. You have a plate underneath and you have a covering over it. It's not just on the table. It's something under and something over it, just like the man. The Ran has another reason why you cover the challah. This you're probably familiar with. It says because really, in the Shivas Aminim, Chita Saira Gefen, you're supposed to make a moitzi first before the bracha on the wine. Now, I don't do that because I need to make Kiddush first. But in order not to embarrass the bread, I cover it over. That's what I was always taught as a kid, and that's not from this page. It's from the Ran that explains the pshat and what's happening. Okay. Tani chada shavin shein maschilin, v'tani dach shavin shein maschilin. One brisa says that everyone agrees that you're allowed to start You're allowed to start the meal before Shabbos. You're allowed to eat first before Shabbos comes in. And then you make Kiddush when Shabbos comes in. And the other brisa says everyone agrees that you're not allowed to. Now, it's a little bit unclear who the shovin is. Who's the everyone agrees? Who's the everyone? Let's say that it's just Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Let's just leave it like that. I understand. Everyone agrees that you're not allowed to start eating before. You know when that is? Mishkachas la Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach, everyone agreed that you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to eat before Pesach. 9 hours into the day, you have to stop eating. Everyone holds shavin shein maschilin. However, elahadatani shavin shein maschilin amos. But where does the brisa? What's the brisa referring to when it says everyone agrees that you're allowed to start? I understand Rabbi Yossi's view, but Rabbi Yehuda is going to agree to that. If you say it's Erev Shabbos, a miflik pligi. They argue. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to start. Like kasha, kan kaidim tisha, kan lachet tisha. Everyone agrees that you're allowed to start a meal before 9 hours. And even Rabbi Yehuda would hold that you don't have to stop the meal at 9 hours. You only have to stop the meal at Shkia. Even Rabbi Yehuda that holds you're not allowed to start a meal at 9 hours and you have to stop, but it's not stop immediately, it's stop at the Zman. Okay. Those people that made Kiddush and Shul. Yeah, I haven't been to a shul. Actually, I have. The Young Israel, they make Kiddush and Shul. Yeah, as a kid, they always made Kiddush and Shul. I went to the different shuls in Rhode Island. And they had a tray with these little things, and the kids would get the drink. They would serve it to the kids. So let's take a look at this. What are they doing that for? We're going to see in a minute. But first, what's the halacha regarding that Kiddush? Amar Rav, Yidayayin la yatzu yidei Kiddush yatzu. Rav says that when they get home, they don't need to make another bracha on the wine. They already said the bracha on the wine. Rav holds shini makom is not a problem. You change the place, it's not a problem. What about Kiddush? I'm sorry, the opposite. I'm sorry, it's the opposite. Rav says Yidayayin la yatzu. Shini makom is a problem. They when they get home, they have to make a bracha on the wine. However, yidei Kiddush yatzu. Yidei Kiddush yatzu. They don't have to say Kiddush again. You were Yaitza Kiddush, not Kiddush alayayin. I was Yaitza Kiddush midaraisa because I said Mekadesh HaShabbos. Baruch Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos was Kiddush midaraisa, but Kiddush alayayin, which was a takano that was instituted later, l'chayros derabanan. I mean, there's machlekes about that, but it seems so. That would be I wasn't Yaitza that. But it says, comes along Rav, says, no. In the shul, the rabbi over there, the chazan, said, Kiddush, you got home, you don't have to make Kiddush again. Shmuel says, Af yidei Kiddush lo yatzu. You weren't Yaitza the wine, you weren't Yaitza Kiddush. Yeah, well, you don't have to drink any wine during the meal unless you want to, but if you do, you say Bari Pregafen. But you can start the meal right away. You get home, you just start with the gefilte fish. No Kiddush. Okay. The Gemara asks, there's some very important taisos in here, but the Gemara asks, El Rav, lama le'lekdusha b'beisi. Why do you have to make Kiddush at home? The Gemara is assuming that everyone goes home and makes Kiddush. According to Rav, you don't have to. So the Gemara explains, well, your family didn't hear Kiddush. But if you don't have your family at home, so you were Yaitza Kiddush. Shmuel, why do you make Kiddush in Shul? That's your question. You're not Yaitza Kiddush anyway, what are you doing? So, we're going to be Knishta. It's for the guests that are staying in the Shul. Yeah. The guests that are sleeping in the Shul, and they're eating and sleeping in the shul, so the Kiddush applies for them. So Taisvus asks, first of all, you're not allowed to eat in shul. You're not allowed to sleep in shul. He says, well, you're allowed to go from room to room, so they're going to another room. Yeah. something like that. Okay. What about today? Why do they still do it today? Yeah, I'm not sure why it's still done today. Maybe something like that. And according to Rav, you would do it, make kiddush. We don't hold like Rav, but according to Rav, you would make kiddush in the shul for those people that don't have their family at home. The B'yaitza kiddush. Okay. Tosfos over here, two important Tosfos in. One Tosfos says, well, the discussion starts off with, should everyone taste from the wine from Kiddush? And not necessarily. Not necessarily. Can the person say the Kiddush when he's not the one that's tasting it and he's only giving it to the guest? Would that be acceptable? It seems like that would be acceptable. Tosfos finishes off. He says that when you make Kiddush and shul and you put the wine into your eyes for refuah, it's healing. It says it takes away. It says if someone takes large steps, siyagasa, it weakens his eyesight. It takes away 1/100th of his eyesight. What is that from 2020? So anyway, when does it come back, the eyesight and all the running that he does during the week? So when he puts the wine in his eyes from the Kiddush. And then he says, the Avi Ezri writes that, no, it doesn't have to be in shul, it could be in the house as well. Kiddush. Yeah. Okay, now the next Tosfos says, has a discussion about if the Kiddush, if you make Kiddush and then you want to drink wine during the meal, so the Kiddush, the hagafen that you made before Kiddush covers the wine that you want to drink during the meal. And he says, let's say you made Havdalah, and then you want to eat a meal. Does the wine get covered? Because the Kiddush was part of the chelik of the Suda. What about the Havdalah? Havdalah is not a chelik of a Suda. It's not like Ein Havdalah Ela B'Makom Suda. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, anyway, that's discussed in this thesis.
Okay. Rabbi, why is it that the young Israel, they don't drink, they just give to the kids to drink?
Yeah. The reason for that would be because you're not allowed to eat if you're not Yetzer Kiddush, which means you can't drink the wine. You're not Yetzer Kiddush because you're not having a Suda, in Kiddush El Makom Suda. Why do we say in Kiddush El Makom Suda? So the Rashbam over here says, places as well, he says, V'karasa l'Shabbos Eineg. When I call Shabbos, that's when I have my Eineg. When I say Kiddush, that's when I have my meal. Now, does that mean that the Suda, in Kiddush B'Makom Suda, means that in order to be Yetzer Kiddush, I need to have a Suda? Or in Kiddush Al-Makom Suda means that a chelik of my Suda is to have Kiddush? I don't know like which side it's being pulled to. Whatever the case is, which Shulchan Aruch is it? Hilchas Kiddush, Hilchas Suda, that I have to have the Kiddush. But whatever the case is, so the question is, are you allowed to give wine to kids for kids to eat before Kiddush? It's a good question. Shouldn't there be a mitzvah of chinuch? Turns out that you're allowed to give children to eat before Kiddush, but you're not allowed to give them to eat outside of the sukkah. Yeah, I'm not sure the reasons for that. I guess the reason is because not to eat before Kiddush is a din in Kiddush. Not to eat out of the sukkah is not just not to eat before Kiddush because I have to make Kiddush. I'm not allowed to eat beforehand. But to eat outside the sukkah has a din with my living. I have to live in the sukkah. I can't just feed him directly. That's a direct prohibition. Is to feed him a child directly out of a sukkah would not be allowed. Yeah. Anyway, okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good day, everyone.